Good morning and welcome to Business Lens on Rapid TV Abuja. It's great to have you join us on this edition. So, let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headlines. The federal government has proposed to spend 6.04 billion naira on personnel costs for Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited in the 2026 fiscal year, even though the steel complex has remained non-operational more than 4 decades after it was conceived. And still on the budget conversation, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima are collectively budgeted to spend 11.03 billion naira on State House operations in 2026 fiscal year. And then we'll move on to the Central Bank of Nigeria that has now projected that the pump price of petrol would hover around 950 naira per litre in its 2026 macroeconomic outlook for Nigeria. And next up is KPMG flags gaps and ambiguities in Nigeria's newly enacted tax laws, urging clarification to ensure compliance and smooth implementation. And still on the taxes, the Nigerian Tax Act 2025 has officially exempted stakes from value-added tax, removing a key provision that previously impacted the operations of gaming and lottery operations. And now let's move on to the international scene, where Ghana's legal tender CD emerges as Africa's top performer against the US dollar, followed closely by Zambia's kwacha and the Congolese franc in 2025, shaping the continent's foreign exchange market selective recovery. And from the markets, we know that the naira has recorded a modest but steady appreciation against the US dollar in the second trading week of 2026, reflecting improving foreign exchange fundamentals and renewed confidence in Nigeria's external position. We'll look at these stories and the market trend. I am Faith Daffy Joseph.
Nigeria's economy, the global markets, what does it all mean for you? From stock market insights to global financial news you need to know. From Wall Street to the Main Street and, of course, the marketplace.
Get the answers you need every week on Business Lens with me, Faith Daffy Joseph, as I bring into focus the stories, strategies, and shifts shaping our economy. No angle is missed as I talk about the business, the people, patterns, and possibilities behind them. Welcome to the Business Lens.
Rapid TV, rooted in truth, driven by impact.
You're welcome back. It's still Business Lens on Rapid TV, and welcome back to the show. Let's get straight to the details. Of course, starting from the first story. But joining me on the show today is Mr. Abiola Adekunle, of course, from Key2 Markets. Always great to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Fit.
All right, so let's get to the first story. It's very interesting because I like to talk about the story a lot, because this is not the first time I've happened upon this kind of story. And it says that Nigeria is set to spend 6.69 billion on Ajaokuta Steel Company in 2026. And this is despite the fact that Ajaokuta has not functioned for over 4 decades. But they are now budgeting 6.04 billion. That's over 90% of the allocation just for salaries, allowances, statutory contributions, Data from the 2026 appropriation bill shows that only 410.8 million, less than 7% of the total budget, is earmarked for capital expenditure, mostly for minor items like computers, security equipment. This is reinforcing Ajaokuta status as a payroll-driven public enterprise rather than an active asset. So let's talk about it, right?
It's first of all, I want to talk about the billions, because we've been so used to hearing billions that a lot of people don't understand what a billion is. If you take a Ghana must go and you put for 500 naira inside, that Ghana must go will not take up to 20 million naira. 20 million naira. Now, 1 million times 1,000, that is the way you get to a billion. So when you start mentioning billions and billions, a lot of people just read it in the news. We don't really grab the concept of what a billion is. A billion will fill the studio.
That's hundreds of millions.
Yeah, it will fill the studio wall to wall. So now you're budgeting that. If you see it in real life, a lot of people would become weak in the knees because they've not seen that much money, but they always hear the figures. Now, by design, Ajaokuta may not work. if you look at it technically, I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. I've looked at it technically. I've looked at how the positioning, where we're going to get what to feed it, what type of raw materials exactly. Yeah, so you don't have the raw materials locally, the full raw materials locally, and the location is even far from the raw materials you have. How is it ever going to work? Okay, for example, I digress quickly. Looking at Venezuela oil, most of the refineries that can actually refine it are in the US. So when you see, indeed, if you have done social studies in primary school, you have heard of this phrase, nearness to market, nearness to raw materials. So by design, first of all, that place might never work. If it would work, the pricing of the steel or whatever is going to be coming out will be above global because it will be too expensive. So now we're coming back to budget. What exactly are we budgeting for?
Personnel.
Personnel doing what? Because these are the things that when people start talking and start saying that they don't want to give more to the government, these are the things that brings about that lack of trust. If you say something has been dead, moribund for decades, and you're still putting money there every month, let's ask ourselves, personally in your homes, do you keep putting money in something that is not working, that is not bringing back anything? No. So if you personally will not spend your money that way, then why will the whole country keep pushing funds into something that is not going to bring anything back for the country? I am not against pushing a lot of money into Ajaokuta if it's going to work. Let's look at the case of the refineries then also. A lot of money that were being spent and nothing was going on in the refineries. Why don't you send those people to other agencies, ministries of the government? So
but why do you even have this sort of personnel in a place that is not functioning?
What do they do every day when they wake up?
Exactly. So you're paying 610 billion naira in salaries because you're only spending about 410 million on your capital expenditures like computers and all of that.
That was 6 billion.
So it was 6 billion, right? Okay. To on allowances and salaries and such. So statutory contributions like pensions and tax and everything.
Do you know how
Why
much?
Are you doing that?
Do you know how much 6 billion is?
So people are still going for training. In that place, people are still retiring and getting pensions. Are getting taxes.
I don't have a problem with those that have retired before, but retired from what? Retired from what exactly? So when you're spending 6 billion in a whole year, let me give you an example because it's good to always drive home, let people be able to relate. Now, if you're earning 1 million naira in a month, which means you are part of the top 1% in Nigeria, that is 12 million naira in 1 year. If you click on your calculator quickly, you'll see that in 1 billion, you might be getting up to 100,000 of such salary. So are they saying they have up to that amount of persons there? So when you start seeing this obscurity and what people will feel that is a waste from the government, how do you want the people to trust the policies of the government? Because now we're asking for funds. We need more funds. New tax law is taking place. All manner of things are going on. VAT might be increased and all that, meaning that the government is looking for more money. But the same government is allocating money to something that is producing nothing.
I mean, let me, I'm going to break this down a little further. So Ajaokuta is not an isolated case. So when we widen the lens to overall governance spending in 2026 budget, you see a similar pattern where recurring costs continue to dominate, bringing us to the presidency and state house expenditures for the year ahead. Now, so we're now seeing that the presidency is set to spend 11.03 billion. Everything in Nigeria is in billions on operations, which means that 8.39 billion for the president and 2.64 billion for the vice president, while State House headquarters gets 43.19 billion, including 30 billion naira for capital projects and 10 million for overheads, and 6.14 billion naira for travel, all within the 58.18 trillion federal budget. Let me break this down. So we have the budget is 58.8 trillion, right?
Okay.
Aside the fact that for this budget, the assumptions are wrong, as usual.
Yeah.
So the total expenditure is 58.18 trillion. The total revenue that the government is expecting to be able to fund this budget is 34.33 trillion naira.
Okay, about 60.
Our deficits for this budget is 23.85 trillion. How do you have that kind of huge deficit every time? It's like the deficit just keeps growing every year, right? And then if you now go to what they call as their bench, so Capital expenditure for this budget is 26.08 trillion. Recurrent is about 15.25 trillion. Debt servicing is 15.52 trillion naira. Debt servicing for 2026 alone.
That's about 25%.
Yes, and your oil benchmark, very, very optimistic assumption per usual.
Unrealistic.
64.85 dollar per barrel. That's about $65 per barrel.
Nah.
When at today, Brent crude is selling for about $62 per barrel, and it might still go
lower. And our
lower.
benchmark should usually be about 10% lower than what is obtainable.
Exchange rate is about 1,400. That's the benchmark.
Yeah.
Right now, I think it's about 1,450 something now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm like, why are you always so optimistic in your assumptions? Where do you think the money is going to come from to be able to feed this 26.08 trillion deficit? And yet you now have 23.85 trillion deficit. And then you have all of this very, very unnecessary spending.
It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the question remains what you said. Why spend so much more on things that might be termed not extremely, not even necessary.
Not necessary.
They are not basics. They are not like things that the country must have. When we talk about state house expenditure, governmental expenditure, right, the household work and all that, it's not a place to really dabble into, and I'll explain why. Except the security and security infrastructures are not being handled in that budget. But if it's been handled in that budget, then you understand every country wants to have a high level of this and that. So we might need to step back a little bit from that. But if it's just the normal operations, we're talking about food, logistics, power, because I read somewhere that we're adding another 7 billion for solar. And I'm wondering, see, the same thing, I'm saying the same thing again. People don't understand the concept of a billion. If you have a 5-bedroom duplex that wants to be totally off-grid, I can tell you categorically that with less than 20 million naira, you'll be totally off-grid. I'm not talking about managing, ACs will be on, heaters will be on, TVs will be on in a 5-bedroom duplex. 20 million naira. How many 20 million naira do we have in a billion? About 50,000. Are you saying there are 50,000 duplexes in the government house, in the villa? I don't think so. And that is just 1 billion. Last year I think we spent about 10 billion. Now we're saying, someone was asking online today, he said, does solar expire every year? I was,
what's
going on? See, the government has not really shown or made any effort to cut their own expenditure for the last decade. I'm talking about this administration for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Yet, they always want the citizen to always take their
to take
their
and get better.
When?
Well, that's what they keep telling us. I'm just
repeating
the talking points.
You will see that most times when the leadership of a country takes steps to show the people that we are also taking cuts, we are trying to make things better by also removing some excesses, the people will comply more naturally. I talked about tax one time, and I said that even an estate, everybody is paying a certain amount of dues, and the roads are being done, the security is top notch. People will queue to go and pay those dues. Of recent, my estate blocked the road, say if you have not paid, go and pay. I'm sure the compliance was more than 80%. And 2 weeks after, all the potholes leading to the estate were done.
Fixed.
This is what we are talking about. But now you're asking people to sacrifice. But how much sacrifice is the government doing?
And then you're looking at things like capital expenditure, what they intend to spend on capital expenditure. And you are saying that it feels like there's not a lot of thought put into it. Health is 2.48 trillion and education is 3.52 trillion out of 58 trillion. So if your health is just taking 2.48 trillion, your education is taking just 3.52 trillion, infrastructure is 3.56 trillion, and defense and security is 5.41 trillion. All of these put together, it's not even up to 20
That's
trillion.
what I was trying to say.
So where exactly is the 58 trillion going to?
That's what I wanted to say, that in any economy, watch how much they budget for education, for health, and for security. These three are extremely important. If these three cannot take 30% of your budget, and then you might need to look at that budget again, because you're talking about the education and health now is like 5 trillion. Then
security is like
5.
Yeah.
Well, so we're looking at
is 3.
So we're looking
less than 20 trillion.
even less than 15. So at the end of the day, what exactly is the focus of the government? Because when we make a lot of statements, oh, this is the focus, we are going to do this in the next 10 years, operation blah, 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 it is from the budget we actually know where your direction is. But check oversight stuff now. No, you check and you'll be surprised. When you start checking projects, then you start seeing funny projects in funny ministries. You know, like, for example, this is just an example. Maybe in Ministry of Agriculture now, you see that they are meant to build a church. Then you start wondering what is the correlation between this and this, but you now understand that it's actually National Assembly project and all that. So for me, the budget does not really look like a budget that is focused in the right direction based on where we have said we actually wanted to go to.
I mean, if you look at what government is spending and you look at, you know, the fact that accountability, especially when you look at this government, you know, even putting everything in place for people to be able to check, it's very difficult. You wonder how you're asking for more taxes, you're borrowing more because you need to fund this budget, and we can't see where the budget is going. And you tell us that you've been able to save over 10 trillion
where is it?
In the year because you're not paying subsidies anymore.
Yes.
So the 10 trillion that you saved, where did it go to? Where is it going to?
I don't even like going into the realm of trillions because trillion is still very, very strange to me. I remember when our budget like 10, 15 years ago was billions. So now we're already crossing the upper half, like half of trillion. Like if we're going to 100 trillion, we've crossed over half. It's scary and it is not bad. The issue is the direction the budget is facing and the implementation at the end of the day.
And the impact of it.
Because one of the things, whether you like it or not, that causes insecurity is lack of education. And already in Nigeria, there's a wide education gap. If you want to know, conduct a normal interview, ask for people to come around and do some little tests. You will be shocked at the level of graduates we have in the country. Now, education already has a wide gap. Doctors are on strike. That means the health of the country is, you know, like this. And we're not talking about the rich guys that can always go to UK or anywhere once they are sick. So education is not doing well, health is not doing well. If education is being very, very, like it's done well, you will find out that the money spent eventually on security will lower.
Yeah.
But because education has a big gap, you keep spending on security because of insecurity. Now, another third part is food. What is the government doing about food security also? Because these are the things that gradually fits into insecurity. People are not eating. I went on a charity visit to a prison recently. In December, and when the controller sat us down, it was explaining that if the people in this prison can be empowered, instead of us bringing food and all those items, toiletries, that they can be empowered, that the reason why they are here in the first place would not have happened. That so it is better they empower them, showed us all their empowerment stuff, which was lovely, and I was surprised that I could see such in a prison or in a correctional facility. Now, what I'm trying to say is, if somebody has a way to make money to eat, that person most likely will not go into petty stealing and vices. And before you know, that person might actually now graduate into armed robbery and even into killing of people.
And kidnapping, which looks like an industry booming right now. Let's talk about, you know, what Nigerians are going to pay